I have to say, one of the things that crossed my mind when I was watching the invasion of the Capitol is, what is Tristan thinking about this? I want you to take that on, along with the question of, what does it mean? What will be the effect of banning Donald Trump from social media?
Yeah, Lawrence. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I am an American, and I'm concerned as much as everybody else was. I think a lot of people who saw The Social Dilemma and heard Tim Kendall say in the film what he's worried about that this would cause, and he said civil war. And I remember the moment when in the editing process, someone said, that seems too extreme. That seems like too extreme a statement. And it feels like to many people that The Social Dilemma is kind of predicted so much of what happened on January 6th. And the process, not just of social media, but letting this business model run for 10 years, narrowing us into a more and more extreme, certain view of reality that really is Crazy Town. And Crazy Town manifested into what we all saw on that day. And I just want to say, as a human being concerned about where this was all going, like everyone else, my first response was, oh my God, and that's why I think you can see in the film such concern on all of our faces, because we're so worried about where this goes if we don't intervene. And, there's so much more to say about, where we go from here.
Well, what about the banning of Donald Trump from social media that suddenly occurred, and it took this invasion to do it?
Yeah, well, we're trapped in this feedback loop where, what is the business model of these companies? They have to get more clicks. So, they do better when they serve you affirmation rather than information. And when you're in this self-reinforcing cycle, the harder it is for us to agree with each other. So the longer this thing runs, the harder it is for us to agree as a culture, because our culture is being torn apart. And then you have decisions like, let's moderate content. Well, is that post by Donald Trump inciting violence or not? Well, the culture, the brain of the psyche of humanity and of the country has been split into two. So the brain of our country can't agree on whether it incites violence or not, because we've been watching different movies of reality. And so there's this weird perverse feedback loop where the longer we wait, the harder it is to make any of the decisions. First, whether it's moderating content, or how are we going to defeat COVID, or how are we going to tackle climate change or racial injustice. All of this depends on a shared view of reality. Now, I think what this acknowledges, when the companies took this unilateral decision, starting with Twitter, to ban Trump unilaterally, is an acknowledgement that this is a Frankenstein that they don't know how to control, except by, frankly, just turning off accounts that are strongly associated with later violence. And it shows that they don't have a more precise methodology. I think the tech CEOs know they don't have a more precise way to do it. I have a friend who runs one of the more prominent fact-checking outlets, Medan, and they have billions of messages that are moving through the system, and they only have a few, tens of thousands of fact checkers, right? So the scale of potential incitement to violence or harm or rumors or misinformation is so much more than they have capacity to deal with it. And so that's really where we are. And I think the thing we need to come together and realize is that we have become a cyborg democracy, in the same way that a person who's got a brain implant is now a cyborg. They're not just a human, they're a human machine cyborg. We are a cyborg democracy, except this brain implant drove us crazy. And when this digital sort of takeover of our national brain took over, what happens is private companies start eating up public interests, and it deregulates those public interests. As I say in the film, we have Saturday morning cartoons in the physical world. When big tech eats up Saturday morning in the attention economy and makes YouTube take that over, we lose Saturday morning protections. And so we lose all the kind of norms, but we also lose democratic decision making. So, I don't think any of the companies wanted this to happen, but they don't have a better option. And if what we need now is really something like a constitutional convention for the digital world, because it's not the case that we should not have articles of impeachment for actors who abuse the system. We should have if we are a digital nation, there should be digital articles of impeachment for certain people in that digital nation, but it should be a democratic process, not an autocratic one made by three, tech CEOs.
Will Donald Trump, if he continues to be banned by the major social media and Parler is knocked off the way it has been so far, will Donald Trump find a way back into some kind of guerrilla social media?
Well, it's interesting watching the first few days. Like everybody else, he kept popping up, and it was a whack-a-mole game. We've used that metaphor before, and it quite literally was the case that he started just popping up on different accounts on Twitter and on the other platforms. I think at some point you probably get exhausted. He could always create his own social media network. But one of the powers of social media is the network effect. We call them Metcalfe monopolies based on Metcalfe's law. The power and growth of the network scales exponentially the more people that are on it. So you don't want to just leave to some other network because there's not enough people there. And you want to be where everyone else is talking. So that's what's really interesting about where we are.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.